So what happens when two of the world's biggest economies, one a historic powerhouse and the other a rising giant, decide to totally rewrite their trade rules? Well, let's dive in and unpack this massive new free trade agreement between the United Kingdom and India.
To really get a sense of the scale here, just look at this number, 5.9 trillion pounds. That is the combined economic muscle of the UK and India just this year. We're talking about a deal between the world's sixth and fifth largest economies, a partnership with some serious economic gravity.
So let's break down why these two economic giants are doing this deal right now, and why it's probably more important than ever before.
The key to understanding the UK's thinking here is all about this trajectory. This deal isn't just about India today as the world's fifth largest economy. It's really about India tomorrow. Projections show it could be the third largest by 2028. And get this, by 2050, India is expected to have over 250 million high-income consumers. That is a colossal market. And this agreement is really about getting a foothold for the future.
So what are the headline numbers? What's the big prize that both sides are shooting for? Let's call it the £25 billion handshake.
So the crucial thing to see here is that this is designed to be a win-win. Economic models are projecting a long-term annual boost to UK GDP of nearly £5 billion, and India is looking at an even slightly bigger gain of just over £5 billion. It's a pretty significant balance lift for both economies. And the engine for all that GDP growth? It's this. The deal is expected to supercharge trade between the two countries by almost 40% in the long run. That works out to an extra $25.5 billion worth of goods and services flowing back and forth every single year.
But what does that really mean for a business on the ground? Well, take Scotch whiskey, a classic UK export. Before this deal, it faced a staggering 150% tariff in India. This agreement just slashes that down, eventually to 40%. All of a sudden, a premium British product becomes so much more competitive and accessible to millions of Indian consumers.
Okay, so we've seen the big picture. But, a deal this massive inevitably creates some shifts inside an economy. So who are the projected winners? And, well, who faces the new competition in the UK?
This table really lays out those shifts. Let's look at the left column first. That's the change in UK exports to India. You can spot the big winners right away. Machinery and equipment, chemicals, and motor vehicles, all looking at huge export boosts. Now compare that to the column on the right, which is UK imports from India. The standout? Textiles, apparel, and leather, with a massive projected increase of nearly $3 billion. This shows a really clear shift. The UK is set to export more high-value manufactured goods and import more textiles.
And hey, this isn't just theoretical stuff. Anish Shah, the CEO of the Indian automotive giant Mahindra & Mahindra, puts it very plainly. They are actively planning to use this FTA to export their electric vehicles to the UK and grab a bigger slice of that market. This is exactly the kind of strategic business move the agreement is designed to unlock. And these shifts in different sectors, they translate directly into regional growth. You can see the West Midlands, which is the heart of the UK's car industry, is projected for a pretty significant 0.13% lift in GVA. That's gross value added, basically a measure of an area's economic output. Then you go up to Scotland, home of all that whiskey we just talked about, and you see a 0.12% increase. So the benefits are spread out, tied directly to what each region is good at making.
But look, trade deals aren't just about businesses and GDP numbers. They affect our daily lives, and they affect our planet. So what's the impact on UK consumers and on the environment?
While for the average person in the UK, the projections are pretty positive. The deal is expected to bring a greater choice of goods, put some downward pressure on prices as those tariffs get cut, and ultimately boost real consumer spending by an estimated £3 billion a year. So more options and potentially lower costs.
But, and this is a really big but, this growth does come at an environmental cost.
The modeling here is pretty stark. The increased economic activity is projected to add 0.8 million tons of CO2 equivalent to the UK's emissions. That equivalent part is just a way of lumping all the different greenhouse gases together. And this figure represents the direct carbon footprint of that growth. And a huge chunk of that comes from something really simple, just moving all these new goods around. Emissions from the ships and planes carrying stuff between the UK and India are set to jump by as much as 49%. It makes sense, right? More trade means more transport, and for now, that means more emissions.
Now, it is really, really important to understand that all these numbers are projections. They are not guarantees. So let's take a second to read the fine print and talk about the uncertainties here.
This is such a crucial distinction. The figures we've been looking at come from an economic model, not a forecast. A model is a simulation. It shows what could happen based on a bunch of assumptions. A forecast is a prediction of what will happen. So think of these numbers as powerful indicators of scale and direction, but they are absolutely not set in stone.
And the model itself has limitations. For example, it doesn't factor in future green policies that could bring those emissions down. The pace of India's incredible growth could slow down or even speed up, and it can't really capture the less tangible benefits, like a boost to innovation that comes from more competition. The analysis even shows a range of outcomes. The UK's GDP gain, for instance, landed somewhere between 4.2 and 5.4 billion pounds in 90% of the simulations.
So we're left with this fundamental tension, aren't we? The models point to a clear economic opportunity, boosting trade, creating wealth, and helping out consumers. But they also point to a very tangible environmental price in the form of higher emissions. So the ultimate question is this: as this agreement moves from paper into the real world, how will we all balance the promise against the price?